Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all very well, and thank you so much for coming to my workshop on how to bag that job. My name is Tara Claybauer, and I work for Lidl Ireland in the HR department as the recruitment specialist. So it's essentially my job to go out and find the talent for the business and fit them into the right job. So what I'm trying to show you here today is a little bit of the background information that I have as a recruiter that is going to be really helpful for you. At some stage or another, you're going to end up going out looking for a job, and these days it's a little bit more difficult. There's a lot more students and unfortunately a lot less jobs out there. As I said, I hope that this is going to be really informative for you and that you get a good bit of information that's going to be of use to you. To start, I'm going to give you a quote here that I'd like you to remember throughout the entire presentation because it's really, really apt. You have to learn the rules of the game and then you have to play it better than anyone else. As we go through the presentation, you're going to see what I mean with getting to know the game and really, really trying to understand what recruiters are looking for at each stage of the recruitment process. What we're going to look at is we're going to have a look at some job descriptions and what you need to look out for there. CV and online applications. We're going to look at telephone and video interviewing, which is one of the newer kind of parts of the recruitment process, which is really, really helpful for recruiters, but there are certainly things that you guys need to know about those. Assessment centres, the do's and don'ts, and the interview process. So to get started, I handed you out a little pack. In that pack you're going to find a job description. Now it is the Lidl Graduate Programme job description, but at this stage I should probably also tell you that this workshop is not necessarily about the Lidl process. I mean, yes, a lot of the elements that we will talk about today, we use in Lidl as well, but hopefully this is going to be very useful for you for any recruitment process. It's based on best practice. Read the job description fully. Read the job description carefully. Does it sound interesting? And most importantly, are you suitable? What a job description is it outlines the tasks and responsibilities that you have. But when you are actively looking for a job, there is a bit at the bottom here, if you look at it, what we are expecting or what we require for our roles within Lidl or within any other company. And the reason why this is so important is you'll see throughout my presentation that there's actually no way of getting around minimum requirements anymore. A job description will outline what the job is going to entail. We outline, for example, do you have a minimum 2-1 honours degree? Are you flexible? Are you motivated? And have you got the right drive? Have you got strong interpersonal skills? All of these things are really, really important to us as a recruiter. If you are not suitable these days, I'd move on. I wouldn't necessarily chance your arm, because I think there was a time where you were able to do that, where you're kind of like, okay, I meet about 60% of the criteria, so I'm just going to go for it. They're going to love me at interview. I'm going to get the job and I'm going to be great. Because these days, there are actually people who fit 100% of the criteria. So are you currently looking for jobs? Or graduate opportunities for when you finish? Okay, so you're probably familiar with the online application form. So once you've looked at your job description, you really, really like the job and you decide, okay, I'm going to apply for this. The first step is going to be filling out an online application form. And I'm going to let you in on a secret. Recruiters have what we call applicant tracking systems, which we in Lidl use one that's called Candidate Manager, but there are several of them out there. Applicant tracking systems make the recruitment process really, really easy for recruiters. And the reason they do that is because we can set minimum criteria, knockout questions or killer questions as they're called sometimes, as well as we can point all of our questions and we can set a target. So for example, you have to reach 60 points in your application form to even get past the first round of screening. So the online application form is really, really important for several reasons. First of all, the online application form is what we as a company want to know about you, and your CV is what you want us to know. So that's the difference there. There are different types of questions in online application forms. If you ever want to have a look even at the Lidl one, we have yes and no questions, we have drop-down menu questions, and we have essay questions. So there are several different ones, and that isn't just a matter of, I'll just fill this in now with anything, it'll be fine, and I'll send it off. Everything that is in that application form is in some way pointed, or in some way it's a killer question, so it can knock you out of the system. I'll give you a good example. As you can see on the job description, which we'll refer back to, we ask for a minimum 2-1 degree for the graduate programme. We ask the question in the online application form, do you have or expect to attain a minimum 2-1 degree? If you say no and hope for the best, the system is going to knock you out. We are not going to be seen by the recruiters. So that's why I refer back to the fact that I said the job description, you have to fit it. There's no point wasting your time. and filling out an online application form if you do not meet the minimum requirements. Other types of questions that you can find potentially would be, do you have a full driving license? Okay, say for example we have a drop-down menu with yes, no and in progress. For yes you'll get 10 points, for in progress you'll get 5, and for no you'll get 0. At the end of your application form, all of those points add up, and we as a company have decided on a quota, so you've got to get at least 50 points in order to be successful in the first round of selection, which is the online application form. I'm going to give you a little hint as well in regard to online application forms. It may say a couple of things like, please outline your education to date. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's on my CV. I'm just going to write CCV. That actually drives recruiters crazy, because there is a reason we're asking you to reiterate what's in your CV. Tell us again. We want to know how well you formulate that. Can you get all the information into, 200 words? Are you going to make spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes, all of these kind of things? These are all really, really important aspects of the online application form. I suppose the best thing to do is to keep the following in mind, and that's attention to detail, structure, spelling, and formatting. Our applicant tracking system picks up on spelling mistakes. That includes things like not making your I's capital. That is considered a spelling mistake or a grammar mistake. And again, some companies have put things into put criteria into place that if you make more than 5 or 10 spelling mistakes, your application again gets knocked out. You don't want to be put in that situation. So attention to detail on your online application form as the first point of call for screening is really, really, really important. I've also given you in your pack some information about how to write a good CV. I'm just going to refer back to what I said earlier. Your CV is what you want us to know, and the online application form is what we would like to know about you. So both are very important. To me as the recruiter, if I'm honest, the online application form is probably more important than a CV. However, both documents need to be perfectly filled out and they need to look really, really well. You need to spend an awful lot of time on these documents. Once you're updating it, it's very easy, but starting from scratch can sometimes be quite difficult. A CV must catch a reader's eye, as you'll probably only have 20 to 30 seconds to make an impression. You can imagine as a recruiter, especially for graduate recruitment, there's so many graduates looking for a good graduate program, and they're all submitting their CVs, and everyone's very, very proud of their CV. But realistically, first of all, if your online application form wasn't perfect or close to it, your CV won't even be looked at. Okay, you get your CV and you've 6, 7, 8, 9,000 CVs to look at. You're not going to be able to spend very much time. So we have to be able to catch something on your CV that's really, really impressive. So hopefully what I tell you now is going to help you create a CV that does exactly that. Layout must be clear and simple, enabling the reader to find the information they need quickly. One tip that I will give you as students is when you're applying for a graduate program or something, it's your first employment, have your educational history on the top of the CV and any work experience a little bit further down. Whereas someone like myself who's had 5, 6 years experience, it'll have to be the other way round, because the next job that I go for, it'll be more relevant what I've done in my previous role. Do you understand what I mean? So you do need to kind of customize it ever so slightly for each job that you go for. Ideally keep a CV to 2 pages. What I'll say here is it very much depends on the culture of the country that you're applying to. So say for example you wanted to apply for a position in Germany. In Germany, CVs are quite literally like books. They are huge. Every diploma, every certificate that a German has ever received is in the back of their CV. They also have photographs at the front and cover notes, cover pages, all sorts of things. And that is completely okay in Germany. In Ireland, we like to keep things a little bit more simple. Okay? 2 pages, nice, clear, simple, nothing all too much. It is worth researching that if you've decided you want to go abroad, or see if there's any positions available somewhere in Europe or even the United States. You do need to spend that time and figure out exactly what they're looking for. Keep sentences short and punchy. Again, it comes down to time. It's very, very frustrating to have a really good application form where they've been really short, really punchy, and they've got exactly across what we're looking for. And then you get a CV which is really long-winded. to be quite honest, it's quite frustrating. So try and keep things as short as possible. It goes back to the fact that we've only got about 20 to 30 seconds for you to make an initial impression. Use bullet points to break up the text under section headings. Okay, that's quite straightforward. I don't think I need to go into too much more detail on that. Include a short summary at the beginning of your CV. Now, I will say something about that. Everybody seems to have great communication skills. Everyone's highly motivated. Everyone's really driven. So I would suggest spend some time thinking about what really makes you stand out as a person and why you really would be the right fit for the role. You don't want to sound the very same as everyone else. I don't know how many CVs that I have read in the past couple of years that have said exactly that. I have great communication skills, I'm really driven, I'm really motivated, I'd be perfect. Do you understand what I mean? So you need to kind of step outside the box and try something a little bit new, but that's not too risky. Include enough detail about previous jobs and experience. Focus on key tasks. I'll give you an example. An administrator could potentially talk a little bit about her CV and say, you know, I do the photocopying, I do the shredding for the department, I, you know, clear out the inboxes, all of this kind of thing. Put it under one heading. So general administrative tasks. You do want to leave something for the interview after all. You need to kind of, you know, you need to be explained what kind of general administrative tasks did you actually do. Rather than listing everything at once, because to be honest with you, that's not necessarily the most entertaining thing to read as a recruiter either. Shout about your achievements. Employers need to know the benefits of employing you. What I mean by this is, I found, I'm obviously not from Ireland, I'm from Germany, and in Ireland people don't like to boast, okay? Very modest people, which is a really, really good thing. But when it comes to your CV, you need to find a way to say, you know, I'm really, really good at this, and you can see this because I did the following. I'll give you an example. I could say to you, that's a really nice scarf. And you turn around and say, oh, this old thing, you know, it's from Pennies, it costs like €3. That's Irish people down to a T, okay? They don't like to boast about things. Whereas a German, if I'm honest, would probably stand up and go, yes, it's fabulous, isn't it? It's really, really nice. And in a way, you need to translate that skill into your CV. Check CV carefully for errors before sending. As a recruiter, there is literally nothing more frustrating than a spelling mistake, because you could have had an excellent online application form. You could be perfect for the role. And if you haven't bothered to check your CV to make sure that there are no spelling mistakes on it, that doesn't portray you in a very good light. So make sure it's double checked. At Lidl, we have something we call 4-eyeing, okay? Which essentially means every document that goes anywhere outside of the department gets checked by another set of eyes. That's a good one to remember. Especially when you spend a long time on a CV or something like that. Essentially, you're not going to necessarily notice the same mistakes as, for example, somebody who's completely new to it. So always run it past somebody else. Use white or cream paper. That might seem like the most obvious thing in the world, but I have come across pink, blue CVs, red CVs, all sorts of coloured paper. In an effort to stand out, it is not a good way to stand out. Okay, it's unprofessional. So if you have bought a green or pink paper, please throw it away. Do not use it for your CVs. Do not include anything that might be considered as a failure. This is a hard one to explain, but I'm going to try my best. Say, for example, you came second in a judo competition. Who came first? We want that person to join our team. Remember, this is just an example. What you should probably say is, I was in the top 3 in Ireland in a judo competition. Do you get me? It's a little bit different. It's a kind of a play on words, sounds more positive, paints you in a better light. Use fancy borders or coloured paper. Okay, we've been through that again. Fancy borders, it's really, really distracting. I don't think it's the most professional thing in the world to do. Leave that be if you can at all. Add photos unless you're aiming to be a model or an actor. Again, I have to come back to the different cultures, okay? In Germany, as I said before, it's very normal to have a professional photograph on the front of your CV. In Ireland, it's not really done, okay, unless you are aiming to be a model or an actor or an actress. If you insist on having a photograph, please make sure it is not one that is cropped from Facebook or one that was taken at the beach or anything like that. Believe me, I have literally seen it all in the last few years, and it doesn't really paint you in a very good light, does it? I don't really necessarily need to see that you were in Turkey this year, you know. It's not necessarily the way to go. Do not use ring binders, particularly frustrating for recruiters. A lot of applications are on, well, actually most of them would be online these days. So, and most big companies have applicant tracking systems, which means that even if you send your CV in the post, it needs to be uploaded onto the applicant tracking system. So taking it apart can actually be quite annoying. And you've also probably spent quite a bit of money on making it look lovely and very, very nice. It isn't really necessary. I would suggest put it in a nice clear cover or something like that, something that's easy to use. I understand you want it to look nice if you're posting it in, but I wouldn't go overboard with it either. Also, do not write your CV in Excel. It just doesn't look right. It's not aligned properly. It's just not a good idea. A lot of people do that because they think it's going to line it up really nicely. That isn't actually the case, so stick to Word. In addition, be able to provide referee details easily and without hesitation. Most people put references available upon request on the bottom of their CV. That is absolutely fine. We don't need to know all the details unless we're actually going to be hiring you. However, be able to actually get that information to us when we do look for it. Again, there's nothing more frustrating than going through an entire recruitment process, deciding to hire somebody, and your contract is pending a referee request, and we call you and you haven't got references. That's really irritating because unfortunately a lot of places won't actually take you then. Be able to provide confirmation of academic results, or at least how one can verify the results. Okay, well that's fairly straightforward. All right. We need to know what you're currently studying and working at. That's again quite obvious. We need a contact number, not just a home number. Let's face it, we're not home very often these days. Okay, we're often out and about, on the road. We all have mobile numbers. A tip that I will give you on that is a lot of companies don't have their X directory, so you don't see their number coming up. So if you're in the recruitment process, do make sure that you're answering private phone calls. Okay, I know a lot of people don't like to do it, including myself, but if, for example, if Lidl was to call you from their offices, you would see private number flashing, and there's only so many times they're going to try to get in contact with you because there's an awful lot of work to be done. Just on the final note there, research has shown that CVs are best written in Arial 10 and 11. That's very, very simple. Highlight all the text and change the font size. It's really, really easy to read. This document here is in Arial 11, just to give you an idea of what that looks like. Again, structure, spelling and formatting is really, really important. If anybody has a CV with them today, at the end of the presentation, I'm more than happy to have a look at it and give you some hints and tips on it. First, you need to convince on paper in order to get the opportunity to shine in person. Before you get to shine in person though, recruiters have put one or two other little things into the mix, okay? It is an interview and it's hard to imagine yourself in an interview situation because it's not really what you expect. You could be on, you could be on the bus or wherever, answering a mobile call. But I do have some hints and tips. At Lidl, we used to do telephone interviews. We actually don't do them anymore. We potentially could go back to them though. But a lot of recruiters are using them because it's a very, very quick way of determining whether you're the right fit for the business. It's important to be prepared when you're doing a telephone interview. What I mean by that is, do not take the phone call on the bus or anywhere else. You make sure that you are at home, that you have a notepad, the job description for the job, and your CV at hand. It is an interview and you still need to put your best foot forward, okay? It is okay to be nervous. It is an interview after all. Demonstrate your communication skills because there's not all too much more you're going to be able to do on a telephone interview. Listen to the questions fully, and if you can't understand the question or if you can't hear it correctly, ask them again. It's no problem at all. It's better than answering the wrong question. Listen to questions fully. Think about your answers. Answer all parts of the question and answer questions to the point. You'll have about 15 to 20 minutes. Now if you've applied for a job overseas, they could do a rather lengthy telephone interview rather than flying you over. So bear that in mind, that it's not something that you're kind of watching the clock and saying, I need to get out of here, okay? Telephone interview is quick, convenient, personal way of determining if you're the correct fit for the company. Now, the newest tool that recruiters are using. Anybody have any experience with video interviewing? No? Okay. This is fantastic for recruiters. Mainly, it's fantastic because we don't have to watch your entire video. We can click next or reject. The way this works is, I as the recruiter type out 5 to 10 questions and bulk send it out to everybody who has applied for a certain stream or a certain job. you will essentially be filmed answering these questions. There are a couple of things to bear in mind here, okay? We've seen it all. No pajamas, make sure that your hair is up, not up in a big mess. I do that as well on a Sunday, but it's not necessarily the best foot forward. Make sure that there's no rubbish in the background, all of these kind of things. Be professional about it. Set up your computer. You will be notified that you have to do one. So set up your computer somewhere with a clear background. Again, have your job description ready, have your CV ready. All of these little details make life a little bit easier for yourself. It is okay to be nervous. Again, it is an interview. If you make a mistake, don't worry too much about it. Continue on to the next question. Take a breather, continue on. You only get one shot, so once you hit record, that's it. Okay, so make sure you read the questions correctly. To be honest with you, the questions don't vary all too much from what you'd expect, okay? Why do you want this job? Why did you apply to our company? It's not going to be any sort of rocket science. It's going to be fairly straightforward. So practice these, these questions that could come up. Read the questions carefully and have a neat and clean background, and I mean that because we've seen it all, and it's not good. If I see dirty bins or inappropriate posters in the back of a college dorm, it's next. I don't want to see that. That's not you at your best. Video interviewing is a really, really, really big deal at the moment, so I can guarantee you that you're going to face this at one stage or another during your recruitment process, okay? It isn't anything to get too panicked about. There are different websites that you can go on to. Sonru.ie. They have some great hints and tips on how you can navigate around these things or through them, as well as the fact that you can actually do some practice runs as well. So that's a good one if you want to have a look at that. Okay, so we have checked the job description, we like the sound of it. We have filled out an online application form successfully. We've had a look at some CVs and we like them. We've done a telephone interview or a video interview, potentially both, you never know. And you get the invitation to assessment centre. Some companies are calling these recruitment days now to make them sound a little bit less scary, but don't be fooled, they are assessment centres, okay? You are being assessed from the minute you walk through the door until the minute you leave. Assessment centres sound really scary with the likes of aptitude tests and questionnaires and group exercises, but at the end of the day, it's a really, really good opportunity for you to stand out. At Lidl we do assessment centres. We call them recruitment days as well. They are actually a great opportunity for us to get to portray our company to you in the best light. So we do a company presentation, there'll be coffee in the morning, there'll be croissants in the morning, it'll be all very nice, and then you'll sit down and you'll do an aptitude test. Put it this way, at Lidl our aptitude tests are relatively basic. Other companies may not be like that. The Big Four, for example, I'm fairly certain would be fairly substantial aptitude tests because they're looking for a certain kind of academic background or academic know-how. Don't panic too much about it. There's no way you can prepare by logging on to websites and Googling a few aptitude tests and maybe try one or two so that you know what you're facing, but there's not all too much you can do because there's no way you're going to know what kind of questions we're going to ask. We do individual and group introductions. We do these to get you up out of your seats, to get you moving a little bit, to relax you so that we can get the best out of you. My tip for group introductions would be, you don't want to be the person who stood up, said, "Hi, I'm Tara, I went to DCU and I studied HRM," and sat back down again. You want to be the person who gets up, literally walks out into the middle of the room, everybody's looking at you, everybody remembers who you are, and properly introduces yourself. Do you see what I mean? At assessment centres, it's really important for you to stand out because you're in a room of up to 60 people, maybe more. How do you stand out best? You need to make sure you stand out in a professional way. We also do group exercises. Now these are the single most important element to an assessment centre or a recruitment day. Most companies do similar ones, but I'll give you an example of one that we've done in the past in case any of you were at the assessment centre this year. I'm not going to give you what's happening this year, but they've done one's called Mission to the Moon. And essentially, what it is you have 15 different items. So it could be a lighter, water, oxygen, etc., etc. Okay, and you, in your group, need to decide what is the most important item, all the way down to the least important item. there is an expert ranking that tells you what is the most important and the least important, and you get a certain amount of points for everyone that you get right. So it's time sensitive, so you're about 15 to 20 minutes to do this exercise, and you find just everybody getting really, really enthusiastic and actually think they're going on a mission to the moon. You know, they can picture themselves kind of walking around, and what do they need to carry, and what's the lightest thing, and what's the most heavy. That is completely irrelevant, because at Lidl we're not going to hire you because you're great on the moon, or you know what the best thing is to bring with you. What we're looking for, and this is something to remember, is the skill set that you demonstrate when you're working as a team. Okay, so that could be planning, organisation, leadership, time management. All of these things come into it, and the assessor is watching exactly to see who stands out with either all of those qualities or some of them. A really, really easy one to stand out with is time management, because nobody ever really looks at their watch and goes, guys, we've only 10 minutes left, we need to hurry this up, we've only 5 minutes left. And it's the easiest skill to demonstrate. I've got great time management because I looked at my watch twice. Okay? Now that is a little tip to give you, because I guarantee you in your group nobody will be watching the clock, because they're going to pay more attention to the assessor, who's going to be saying, okay guys, you've got 5 or 10 minutes left now. Do I make sense with that? So you need to stand out with little tiny tips like this are really, really going to help you. Some companies have also added, well we have, and other companies I've heard as well, 5-minute speed interviews to assessment centres. Okay, they'll break the group up into 2 or 3 or whatever, and you stand in a hallway and you wait in line. My tip to you here is, you're not just ever waiting in line at an assessment centre. They're going to ask you questions. They're going to see, do you talk? You know, you talking to them? Have you got genuine questions about the company? An easy one is always, oh, what's it like to work for the company? How long have you worked for the company? Show some genuine interest, because the person standing in the corridor watching the 5-minute clock is also an assessor. They are also looking to see whether you might be a fit. If I could give you any advice, it's you're never just on a break, or you're never just having a coffee, or you're never just standing in a corridor. You're constantly being watched. All right? After an assessment centre, the amount of applicants is dramatically reduced. Last year, we reduced our applicants to how many was it? Over 300, down to about 64. Okay, so it was massive. Massively reduced the amount of applicants. So you've navigated your way successfully through this recruitment process, and you're at the last stage, which is at the interview. Okay. What's really important to remember is, at assessment centre you need to stand out because you're in a group, whereas at the interview they know you're good, you could be perfect. They want to see how well you'd fit in with the company. When it comes down to the interview, the first thing, before I even look at the slide here, I'm going to say to you is, check and find out what the company culture is. I'll give you another example. At Lidl, men don't wear ties. Okay, they wear a full suit, but they don't wear any ties. What that might tell you is that although we're very corporate, we're also quite casual. Okay, the likes of Google, they have a completely different company culture to us, and if you're going for an interview there or any other company, it's probably very important for you to figure out, what they're like there. What do they wear? What are they, what do they do on lunch? Do they have a group canteen? What's their corporate social responsibility? What do they do as a team? All of these things are quite important, because that way then you can fit right in at your interview. When it comes to the interview, it's important to review your qualifications for the job. The last thing you want to do is be fumbling around with pieces of paper and double checking at what stage in your life you did what degree. Okay, you need to know these things ahead of time. Dress appropriately. Again, it's important. I would always recommend to wear a suit or something similar for girls to an interview, because you do want to come across professional and you're taking this serious. Okay, but again, it comes back to just double check and see what way they dress within that building that you're going to. Look the interviewers in the eye don't make it in a scary way, where you're constantly glued to one person. Look around you. It can be quite difficult to look people in the eye, especially when you're nervous. So that will mean stepping outside your comfort zone ever so slightly. Find a comfortable position in the seat. One of the tips that I have, it's probably one that you've heard hundreds of times before, is if you're uncomfortable or if you're a little bit nervous, even hold something in your hands, even if it's just a pen, just to kind of calm your nerves a little bit. Be cooperative and enthusiastic, and practice with family and friends. This can be a little bit awkward. I'm 100% aware of that, okay? Obviously, I have a lot of friends that would come to me for interview advice, and they always want to practice interviews, and it starts off as a bit of a joke, and it's very uncomfortable. It's not the usual setting that you're in with your friends, but it is really, really important to practice and chow out all the different types of questions that come your way, that could potentially come your way. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So to wrap up the presentation on the recruitment process, the key to your success is paying attention to detail. And I mean that very seriously, because nowadays it's not just the human eye that spots mistakes, it's systems, okay? You can't get past them, no matter how hard you try. Answer questions to the point. Try to not ramble on. It can be very difficult, and I'm totally aware of that when you're nervous, and recruiters do take that into account, that you're probably nervous and that you're probably a lot calmer on the job than you are in your interview, obviously. Be yourself. At the end of the day, it is not going to be easy to pretend to be somebody else for 5 years in your first job, okay? So be honest and be truthful and be yourself. Be cooperative and enthusiastic, and get feedback from family and friends. That's really, really important. As well as that, can I just add, your careers guidance counsellors can help you with all of these things. They know the works as well. Let them have a look at your CV. Ask them questions about the online application forms. How should I answer this? You really only get one shot to prove yourself to a company. You don't want to be applying again next year just because you made some silly spelling mistakes. Success comes before work, but only in the dictionary. That is essentially the recruitment process in a nutshell. The Lidl Graduate Programme is an 18-month programme initially. It's a development programme, so for the first 6 months, it is company policy that you spend 6 months in our stores. It's really, really important to us that you get to know our operation from the ground up, okay? After that 6 months then, you spend 12 months in the chosen area. If you have completed the 18 months successfully, we offer you the option to go to Germany for 6 months. We have an in-house German teacher, so for the last 6 months of your 18-month program, you'll start to go to German classes. Then you'll go for 3 months to total immersion with Berlitz Language School. You can imagine this is a huge investment to the business. Like, it costs a fortune to have graduates. And then for 3 months you spend 3 months in the international head office, working in the department that you chose and have worked in Ireland. So you've got your sales training, you've got your department training, you've got your international exposure and a new language. So what we look for in return is hard work, sleeves rolled up, and really, really get stuck in.